Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Arola. Resolved that the regular meeting commence at the hour of 7 p.m. And be it further resolved that Council acknowledges that we are meeting in the Robinson Superior Treaty area on lands that have been traditionally used by several Indigenous nations. But we would like to pay special recognition to our closest Indigenous neighbors, the communities of Bittigawn, Shinapig, and Pic-Mobert First Nation. We wish to recognize the long history of the First Nations and Métis people in our region specifically and show respect to them today. All in favor? I'll call the meeting to order.
In addition to agenda item number 1501, closed session, Section 239(2)E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and Section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, integrity commissioner complaint.
I'll call the meeting to order and resolve that the agenda be approved as amended. All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary or interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move to the delegations and presentations. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Arola. Resolved that Council is in receipt of the presentation provided by Beth Beesworth, Librarian CEO, and Connie Hunter, Chair of the Manitouwadge Public Library Board, regarding the 21 to 26 strategic plan for the Manitouwadge Public Library. You're on.
We're ready to go? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, yeah, we're fine.
Okay. So we just wanted to thank you very much for your time tonight, and the Library Board is very excited to finally be able to present our 2021-26 Manitouwadge Public Library Strategic Plan. So we started this process because we had a bunch of ideas for the library. So to help us focus everything, we used the services of the Ontario Library Service North. The 21 to 26 Manitouwadge Public Library just strategic plan. Thank you very much.
So as Connie's already said, thank you very much for allowing us a few minutes of your time just to present this. We're, like you said, excited about the results that we've came up with and what that will result in for the library and for the community. So our board and staff have worked diligently to put this plan together, and it was important for us to develop these specific goals, both long-term and short-term, and covering a range of areas of library service to ensure that the programs and services and any changes we were making to the library were in line with specific goals that we had set. And we feel that this will help us to make the most of the resources entrusted to us, both financially and in staffing and anything else that we have at our disposal. And it will allow us to continue to be a valuable asset to the municipality and to the community that we serve. So to start with, I just want to highlight our mission, vision, and core values, and then we'll move into some of the specifics of the plan. Our mission statement, you find that on our full plan starting on page 4. And our mission statement just states that the Manitouwadge Public Library offers opportunities for discovery in an equally social and academic atmosphere. Passionate staff provide innovative programs, services, access to information, collections, and off-site programming. And along with that goes our vision that says that the Manitowoc Public Library is a modern, growing community hub, keeping our residents connected and informed, preserving the past, and creating a gateway to innovation. And as we consider our mission and our vision, we feel that our core values that formed the bulk of our plan can really be summed up in these 4 ways. One is the idea of supporting local business wherever we can, whether that's in purchasing items locally, advertising through them, partnering in any way we can. We also want to be environmentally aware of the impact that we're leaving. That's obviously very important to everybody these days, and so that's another core value. A third was cooperation and partnership. Particularly in a small community, we need to be able to work together to have mutual goals and to benefit one another. And fourthly, we want to offer the community a friendly and welcoming environment. Public libraries are one of the few completely public spaces that anybody can access, and we want that to continue to be accessible and welcoming to all who would come into that space. And connected with our core values are what we determine to be our core services that we're able to provide to the community. The first is our collections, which would be the most familiar piece of library operations. It's the books, the magazines, the physical things that we have in the building. Secondly is our programming, which is varied significantly over the years, just depending on what our community is looking for. We also want to be a place where we can access technology, both the regular day-to-day stuff as well as the innovative things like our makerspace and those sorts of things that we can introduce to the community where they may not have otherwise an opportunity to do that. We also do try to support our businesses through services, faxing, copies, laminating, any of those simple things that are simple until they're hard to access because not everybody has them just in their own offices. And then finally, again, that public, open public space. And so as we considered all of that, the Manitowoc Public Library Board set 4 overarching strategic priorities that we just want to highlight. In our strategic plan, you see that start on page 8. It is lengthy, and you will see that there is a lot of detail as far as the objectives and the action plans that we want to implement within each of these priorities. But for the sake of the presentation, I just want to highlight sort of the overarching reasoning behind each of those priorities, why we chose them, and if you have any questions or need any more details, then please just ask. So our first priority surrounded staff training and human resources. Our staffing resources, both our paid staff as well as our volunteers, such as the board, we feel are one of the most valuable resources we have to offer to the community. Their knowledge and commitment to the library is to be commended, especially in light of the challenges that this last year has placed before them. In this plan, we wanted to ensure that we are working to equip them to continue to serve with the same level of excellence that they currently display, and we want to provide opportunities for growth. We also want to be able to prepare the library as a whole, both for expected changes and, as we've seen in this last year, unexpected changes. And we're looking at doing that through things like cross-training, succession planning, as well as some specific career development, staff development goals that we can set that are specific to our employees and to our board. Our second strategic priority surrounds modernization of library operations. When we were considering modernization of the public library, we were thinking both in terms of space, resources, and programming. We want to continue to offer physical collections and in-person programming that is interesting, engaging, and educational, but we also want to be aware of changing opportunities, changing needs, new technologies, new innovative things that are going on, and we want to be prepared in a way that we can jump on board with those things to offer them to our community well. And this also means, as we saw this year, being mindful of the changing landscape of how people connect and communicate digitally with respect to e-resources that they can access from home, virtual programming. We're learning new skills just as everybody else is kind of along the way to keep up with that, but it's an important part of what we want to continue doing moving forward. And this also meant considering the space that we have and making sure that we're using it to its fullest, so that we have the space and the ability to offer the collections and the programming and the technology that we want to be able to offer to the community. And we look forward throughout the course of this plan looking at working very closely with the township staff and particularly the Director of Community Services in coordinating any activities and figuring out the best way to move forward with any projects of that nature. Our third priority was around growing and expanding our presence as a community hub. Libraries over the last stretch of time have become so much more than just a place to house books for patrons to enjoy, although that does continue to be a huge part of what we do, particularly in our community. We have a large number of people who really do just love the feel of a book in their hand as opposed to those digital resources, but there is so much more that we do. And we desire to see the library be that hub for the community, a welcoming environment where people can engage with each other, with our programming, and just have a safe and welcoming space to be. Our goal is to offer relevant and exciting programming within our space and within our community. That's already been a goal that we have been working towards over the last number of years, and realizing that sometimes we need to get out of our four walls and reach people where they are to introduce them to everything that the library offers. And so in connection with that, we want to continue to seek out partnerships within our community to enhance the experience that people have as they live and work in our community. And fourthly, we want to look at advertising, communication, and demonstrating library value. Again, if COVID has given us one positive takeaway from this last year, is the value of communication and being clear and being effective as we engage with our community in whatever way we can. And so throughout the period of this plan and beyond, the library is committed to excellence in communication. We want to improve the way that we communicate information about our programs and services to the community, as well as increasing our engagement with our partners and non-users as well. It's always much easier to communicate with the people who you're already connected with, but finding ways to connect with those that we may be able to help in some way but we're not currently connecting with is a big part of looking at our communication strategy. And we also want to include in that the ability to receive feedback from all of those groups, our partners, our users, our non-users, about the services and programs that we offer. Throughout this as well, we want to demonstrate through tools like the Social Return on Investment Library Value Toolkit, which we had provided last year. You would have seen an infographic with some of those numbers and some of what we've been able to accomplish, just to show in a tangible way what it is that the library is adding to the community. And we want to demonstrate the feedback that we receive from the community as well. So opportunities to share those good news stories where we're able to make a difference for somebody's life, help somebody out, meet a need, provide a service that was maybe otherwise unavailable. And as we do that, we want to continue to find ways to increase that value. So where there's a gap that the library is able to fill, we want to be kind of ready just to jump in and meet that need to the best of our ability. As I'm sure everybody can appreciate, COVID made for some interesting hurdles as we did this. It really inserted itself right into the midst of strategic planning, and we were forced at many stages to stop and consider the impact of a global pandemic on planning for the Manitowoc Public Library. It seems like taking a really big thing and trying to focus it in small, but through that process, we have been able to see our plan through a COVID lens, and we are confident that our goals and directions during the coming years will serve to strengthen the municipal environment and provide our residents with a public library that will meet their ever-changing needs. So again, we thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and we are looking forward to continuing just to serve as part of the community.
Any questions? Very good presentation, ladies. Very good. And be it further resolved that council thanks the above noted representatives for attending and providing the presentation to council. All in favor? Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson, resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting held on December 17, 2020 are adopted as circulated. All in favor? Thank you. There are no petitions or correspondence, so we'll move to the verbal update by our CAO.
Thank you. Through the chair. As many of you know, the province announced yesterday new COVID rules. We have basically the information we're getting came all from the media. Today we started to get the trickle in of the regulations and the interpretation of those. We're continuing to get those stuff. It's not as urgent today to put out a press release because the changes aren't so great for Manitowoc. More the time frame is the issue. So we've been looking at our operations and what we need to do. And hopefully tomorrow we have the rest of the regulation down and clarification where we can issue a public statement. And as soon as we're in a position to do that, we will be putting information out to the public. The main message that the province is looking for is protect at home. As much as you can do just the people in your dwelling unit and stay to that, other than groceries, medical, resources, exercise, stay to your dwelling, and that's what they're hoping for. They're encouraging those people that can work from home to work from home. So, like I mentioned, we will issue a municipal statement once we get the final clarification on the regulations. We have submitted our delegation for the Roma meeting to the MTO regarding drive test concerns and service in the municipality. So Jolene emailed it off today, and we will be meeting with Minister Mulroney. So that is in place. Work is continuing on the Rec Department master plan. They're doing phone surveys and completing that. There's a couple more people in the community we want them to interview, and stuff is and going ahead. I was thinking tonight, I'm not sure if a copy of the library's strategic plan has been sent into the recreation master plan. It might be helpful for them to look at that, incorporate that in their document as well. So we'll check on that tomorrow, and if that's not happened, we'll get that done.
Yeah.
Something we'd like to mention is the Railbed Road south of town. We've had 3 incidents, close calls within the last week. All of a sudden, people want to use it as a recreation area. It was purchased for industrial purposes, for log trucks, and for us to access the industrial area and some projects we have on the table. We've had a recent a rash of people walking dogs off leash. This is a community area with a bylaw that says you'll have your dog on a leash. We've also have people parking at curbs and narrow spots on that roadway and causing near misses. We had one log truck just about rolled the other day. So we're asking the residents to please refrain from that area. It is an industrial area and not a good area for general recreation. So if we could abide by that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Move to the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Arola, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Being a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of $1 billion be read a first and second time.
This is a standard practice we do every year. We put it in place at the beginning of the year. It's a requirement of the banking and the budget process that we do. I don't know if we've ever exercised it, but we always seem to put this in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
No questions for that? Mm-hmm. And further be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-1. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Arola. Being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy for the year 2021 be read a first and second time.
You want to come talk that one, Chris?
Thank you. Simply, we don't produce the budget until June, July, etc. So by producing an interim levy bylaw that provides us funds, allows us to provide an interim levy based on 50% of last year's final property taxation to each resident. Therefore, we can utilize the $1 million we're borrowing off ourselves until we get revenues to produce municipal functions.
And it allows us to put out the interim tax bills, which
It
we're
allows us to
hopefully
put out the
going to
bills.
issue in the next little bit here. Yeah.
Again, any questions for that? That
No,
happens every year.
Standard.
Yeah, standard for
Yeah.
this.
And further be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-2. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson, being a bylaw to establish and maintain a reserve fund for contingencies for appeals of current value assessment, be read a first and second time.
If I may, at the last council meeting, we provided an overview of the reserve funds for council. We spoke about a number of the reserve funds that we felt needed adjustment, housekeeping, and things like that. So these are the bylaws to make those changes happen. So we'll approve the bylaws tonight, hopefully, and then at the next council meeting, we'll bring back the balances to council of what the new reserve fund structure looks like and all those reserve balances for council to see. So we could just kind of go through these tonight. They're pretty well all the things we talked about at the last council meeting with those adjustments. So the first one is to maintain a reserve fund for assessment appeals and current value assessments. As council know, we previously had a bylaw that was set at $300,000. There was an excess of $1 million. So looking through the operation, we recommended to set that to $500,000. So we'll make that change and we'll update the bylaw. And we've added some wording in the bylaw because previously, we looked at 50% of the year's surplus would go to the assessment appeal bylaw and 50% to infrastructure replacement. So we've changed the wording. Do you have the wording in front of you, Jolene?
Yes.
Could you read that one sentence off for us, please? Sorry to catch you off.
No, that's okay. That any reserve funds expended for an appeal of current value assessment will be replaced with the current year adjusted surplus, and further, any additional remaining surplus be allocated to the infrastructure reserve fund.
So what this means, for instance, if we spent $100,000 out of that reserve fund that year because of an assessment appeal, we come to the year end, we have a surplus of $140,000. Before it would go 50-50. What we'll do now is put that $100,000 back to that reserve fund first, so we retain that $500,000 number all the time, and you're not having to do it through 2 years or 3 years, because if you go another year and you do more assessments next year, you'll fall further behind. It'll be hard to play catch up. So that would be our priority of surplus, is to keep that at that 500. So the first, whatever we use, that amount would go back to then, and then the balance would go into the infrastructure reserve fund as it was before. Before it stayed at 50%, this will become the priority based on so we always have that available to work with. Okay.
Are you going to speak on all
Oh,
of them?
I can if you'd like. How do you want to deal with them through the chair? It's fine either way.
Well, no, I can finish this one, and we'll go to the next one. Any further questions on the first one?
No. Okay, so the next one then is the repeal of bylaw 2006-04, which was a bylaw for the Commonwealth project, which was the infiltration project. So that work is all complete now. So we're repealing the bylaw. There's a small surplus in there, and we'll just relocate that money to free up for other projects. So that's the intent of that one. The next one is establish and maintain a reserve fund for public works equipment. As we mentioned at the previous meeting, there was a reserve fund called the GECO Roads account, which was a previous agreement we had when the mine closed to maintain the roads, and it was to replace the equipment at Public Works that we used as part of that agreement. So we've just retitled it, make it thing. We don't have a GECO's road agreement anymore, and haven't for a long time. So again, we're more of a house thing, keeping. I think that's it for those changes.
Okay, so I'll read those three and further be read a third time and passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-3. All in favor? Thank you. And then I'll read the second one, which is moved by Councillor Arola, seconded by Councillor Moffat, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 2006-04, being a bylaw to establish and maintain a reserve fund for the repayment of the township's portion of the COMRIF project, be read a first and second time. And further be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 20-21-4. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Arola, being a bylaw to establish and maintain a reserve fund for public works equipment replacement, be read a first and second time. And further be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-05. All in favor? And the next one is the bylaw moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 20-17-15 to govern the proceedings of the council, the calling of meetings and pertaining to the conduct of its members, to include provisions for electronic participation of council, local boards, and other committees, be read a first and second time. That one.
Yeah, I'll turn this one over to the clerk to speak to.
Okay.
Thank you, through the chair. So this bylaw presented is to amend our current procedural bylaw. In the report, as I stated, with the passing of Bill 197, it changed the legislation to include electronic meetings in the municipal act outside of emergencies. So our current amendment that we have under the procedural bylaw only allows for electronic meetings during an emergency. So if at any point in time we declare our emergency over, or the province declares it over, then our amended bylaw is null and void. So this is just to update our procedural bylaw and to put a few processes in for electronic participation.
Questions? Yes.
Okay, so does that mean that even after the emergency's gone, that we could continue by using
Zoom.
Yes.
by Zoom?
Yep.
So
Yes.
Yep.
a member of council could be on vacation somewhere
Yep.
and still be at a council meeting.
Mike Sean shift, and we've done
Yeah.
what we've done. And those
Okay,
kind
so
of-
that
That's
will
perfect.
continue
Yeah,
going
so
forward.
with everything that happened under COVID, they realized,
It's a need.
Makes sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
Electronic participation is beneficial,
Yeah.
and, it allows for council members to join in if they're ill or away or there's any issue. So this allows, under the Municipal Act, to attend any time.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that.
I'll ask one question. Is there any provision there that says, but you must have a majority present at a meeting, or can everybody be all on Zoom at the same time?
That would be at the discretion of council. So right now, we are just running under the same guidelines that we were running under the emergency. When we present the updated procedural act, or bylaw, I'm hoping that that can be a discussion of council to make those decisions at that time.
Yeah,
Okay.
that will be,
We can discuss it then as to what
Yeah.
we think,
When?
I'm
how
hoping
many
during that
can be
time in the
missing.
spring.
in the spring. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, perfect.
We have a list of proposed changes for you to that.
Okay.
Any further questions on this? Okay. And further be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-6. All in favor? Okay. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat, being a bylaw to adopt procedure for council participation in electronic meetings. Policy be read a first and second time. Is that?
Again, through the chair, so this is a policy that would just give us procedures to follow when it comes to electronic participation in other meetings. Again, it's similar to what's in the amending bylaw right now, but it gives us a little bit more in-depth of a guide to follow.
Okay. And further be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-07. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Arola. Resolved that Council is in receipt of correspondence from Connie Hunter, Chair, Manitowoc Public Library Board regarding request from the Library Board to approve transfer of unspent 2020 budget funds to an existing library reserve fund. Discussion.
Yeah, the treasurer and I discussed this, and we think there is some monies obviously budgeted in certain areas, all of the municipality that we haven't spent, and then other areas with COVID where we have spent money that we didn't even plan on spending. We thought it was best and recommend that we just let the surplus be the surplus and use our surplus bylaws. And if they want to make a request to establish a reserve fund for the library and the purpose of the fund, that they do it through the 21 budget request like everybody else is going to do, and put that request before council to consider the budget as a whole.
Any questions? And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, council directs the request be submitted through the annual budget process. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that Council is in receipt of Administration Report TR 2021-01 submitted by Chris Towns, Treasurer, regarding reserve establishment and transfers.
To the Chair, at the last meeting of Council, we did a presentation on the reserve funds, the housekeeping, the establishment, and transferring of funds for repurposing due to projects that have expired, we're not doing, or there was leftover funds available. So at that time, we recommended that we create a reserve for the 2019 one-time unconditional grant from the province of Ontario for $393,400. Those funds were received, and they were never purposed. They are still sitting in our surplus funds accounts, and we want to purpose them. So we would like to create that reserve. We would also like to transfer the unused capital project funds from previous years into infrastructure, as again, those projects are either being completed and came under budget, or they are not going to be completed. We might as well put them back for future purposes. We'd like to transfer the sum of $123,600 from the Recreation Projects Reserve to the Community Center Reserve, as again, unfinished projects or projects that were completed under budget, but just repurpose the money to its home, essentially. And we would like to transfer the remaining balance of the GECO Roads Fund, as mentioned earlier, to the Public Works Equipment Replacement Reserve Fund.
We've approved the bylaws. The report comes later on.
Yeah,
those are the bylaws and all the purposes that you did that. And at the next meeting, we'll come back with the list of the reserves and the balance in all of the reserves.
So administration is asking for a resolution to move these funds as presented.
We have the bylaws established. Now we have to put the funds in the bylaws.
No further questions?
Through the chair, so just to clarify, for the GECO Roads Reserve, unless I missed it, there's not an exact dollar value on that one right now?
There was.
Because it doesn't say it on your report.
Yes, there is. I don't have it with me, unfortunately. Sorry for that.
Okay.
It was presented in the original. It was presented in the original presentation last week.
I can't remember if I'm going to be wrong if I said that.
No, I'm just checking.
But it was purposed for that.
Yes.
But the way the previous bylaw was written, it was for GECO Roads.
Yep.
We want to repurpose it. GECO Roads don't exist anymore, essentially, under the platform we're operating at.
Right.
So we want to put it in Public Works where just housekeeping, essentially.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
We'll have the balances for it.
Yeah, in the next meeting, I'll have all those transfers completed.
Okay.
And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, direct staff as follows. That the one-time unconditional grant for the province of Ontario in the sum of $393,400 be transferred to the capital projects reserve and be established and maintained in its own reserve, and further that the unused capital project funds from previous years from the capital project previous year reserve be transferred into the infrastructure improvement reserve, and further that the sum of $123,600 from the recreation project reserve be transferred to the community center reserve, and further that the remaining balance of the funds in the GECO Private Roads Reserve Fund be transferred to the Public Works Equipment Replacement Fund. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Arola, seconded by Councillor Moffat, whereas Section 239.4 of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 C25 provides that before holding a meeting or part of a meeting that is to be closed to the public, the municipality or local board or committee of either of them shall state by resolution the fact of holding of the closed meeting and the general nature of the matter to be considered at the closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that this meeting is hereby closed to the public as the subject matter being discussed falls under the following sections. Section 1, 239.2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and Section 239.2B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Integrity Commissioner complaint. All in favor?